everyone, Nikki Novak here in the Young Hollywood studio with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Great to have you here.
Nice to be here, thank you.
I should have introduced you as U.S. Cultural Ambassador.
Well, you could have, but I'm not used to it yet, so whatever makes you comfortable.
That just happened, didn't it? It was
just last
2012,
month.
And you were appointed by Hilary Clinton?
Yes, I was.
How did that feel?
It felt great because one of my heroes is Louis Armstrong, and he did the same function for President Kennedy. So for me, it's neat to follow in his footsteps. And, I always loved him since I was a kid.
So what does that entail, cultural ambassador?
Well, you go different places and you try to talk about what America is all about. They call it personal diplomacy.
You have a new book.
Yes, it's called What Color Is My
book.
World, yeah.
And it was great because it was very easy for me to read.
Good.
And adults can read it and really get into it too.
Yeah, adults like it because it has large print. They don't have to wear their
It has large print. I enjoyed that. And it has, you know what it also has? It has the little sort of like fold outs. It's almost like a pop-up book. And
exactly.
It reminds me of my childhood, so this is why I loved it. So it's basically about Black inventors.
Black inventors that invented things that we all take for granted and in very common use, but most people don't know that Black people invented them.
And is that why you decided to co-write the book? Because you just wanted to bring that out into the...
I wanted to bring it out. I thought it was very important because when these things happen, people get a better understanding of what other people have done and don't just attribute everything to the dominant culture.
Well, I have some of my favorites from the book.
Okay.
First of all, we have to address the potato chips. Dr. George Crumb, and I love that his name is Crumb, and he invented a potato chip.
Cornelius Vanderbilt was at Saratoga, New York for the races, and he kept sending back his meal because the potatoes were underdone. So George Crumb said, all right, he cut the potatoes as thin as he could and boiled them in oil, and they became crisp. You couldn't eat it with a fork, but he sent it to Mr. Vanderbilt, and Mr. Vanderbilt loved him. George Crumb had the good sense to patent it, and his Saratoga chips became popular across the country, and now they are the most popular snack food in the world.
Yeah, I read something like 3 billion, in annual sales in potato chips.
Exactly.
Dr. Valerie Thomas, a woman, which I love to see in the book,
yes,
who invented an illusion transmitter, or what we know as 3D.
3D. It's basically the template for most of the 3D applications that we use nowadays. It's really going to be an important invention.
And in your film, we should mention, there's some 3D on the shoulders of giants.
We call that 2.5D.
Well, you don't need glasses for it, right?
Glasses, right? Which
I appreciate, because those glasses are so uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a documentary about the early days of professional basketball. In the 1920s and 30s, sports in America was segregated, and Black Americans were not allowed to participate in what were considered the legitimate leagues.
The NBA, when it started, was segregated.
We really had nothing.
It was time to redefine who we are in the art, in music, in sports.
All the older guys, we couldn't thank them, enough for what they did.
Can you do any of the Globetrotters?
Can't
stunts?
do any Globetrotter tricks,
You mean there's something that you can't do in basketball?
Absolutely. There's a whole lot I couldn't do.
So who are some of the people these days that you're watching in the NBA that you sort of have your eye on?
I like Mr. Rose from Chicago Bulls. He's just he's an extraordinary young man on top of being a great athlete. I coached the Lakers up until spring of last year. Kobe Bryant's going to be one of the all-time greatest whenever he decides to stop it.
Well, you're the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, and didn't he just beat Shaq, and he's now number 5?
Yeah,
in the last couple of days.
He's creeping up there. Yeah.
So you were named one of the greatest players of all time, or the greatest player of all time, by Time magazine.
It's very kind of him to say that. There's been so many great players, and it's always an argument. I think that's why they have sports bars. The title of my documentary is On the Shoulders of Giants, and I named it that because Sir Isaac Newton was right. He said that if he had seen further than other people, it was only because he stood on the shoulders of giants. And all of the guys that played before me that enabled me to learn what I was able to learn, I got to give them credit for that.
Well, you're also known to encourage young people to get an education beyond sports.
Yes.
And do you think that's one of the things that made you such a great player, is being able to use your head and use your mind when you're playing? Do you have to sort of have those smarts and that sort of sixth sense about you?
Smart players are better than players who are just accomplished
Just
athletes.
talented.
I mean, they have all this athletic talent, but if you can't use it wisely, you don't win the big games. Your intellect will take you through the rest of your life and enable you to be satisfied with what you're doing. Knowledge is power. You know, it's real power.
So before we started rolling, you said to me, you must have played basketball, and I took that as an extreme compliment coming from you. So can I ask to compare hands?
Of course, of course.
I got a long way to go. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.